I'm going to play some extraordinary video for you today of Family Guy creator Seth MacFarlane just intellectually dribbling Bill Maher's head all over his own podcast. Bill Maher invited Seth MacFarlane on, and I think it's great that Bill Maher regularly has people on who make him look uninformed. I'm not saying that sarcastically. It's great that he doesn't just shoot fish in a barrel, and he brings people on who can say, Bill, you're wrong about a lot of this stuff. The topic of COVID came up. The topic of vaccines came up. And Bill Maher says many things that aren't true. Seth MacFarlane very calmly and rationally takes it all apart. Let's just jump right into this, and I'll give you my thoughts as we go.
Like what would be an example of that?
I would think this country did not allow for natural immunity to be considered. And I know this is a subject dear to your heart.
Yes.
Like, even if you had the disease, you still had to get a vaccine. That's powerful, stupid. They don't do that in Europe.
I think they do that here. There's mandatory vaccination in schools.
Right, but if you already had the disease, you have natural immunity. We didn't seem to believe in that.
That was
here.
Debunked, though. I mean, that's not debunked. Don't you know people who've had COVID 4 or 5 times? I do.
So this is interesting because, of course, this isn't what they mean by natural immunity, but it's actually a really great point. If natural immunity was useful, then you would think that having gotten COVID would either protect you from getting it again or protect you from future strains or whatever. And it actually doesn't. Now, it's not untrue to say that when you immediately recover from COVID, you now do have immunity, at least for some period of time, against that same strain. But the genesis of the idea was let it run rampant and then there will be no more COVID. But as we know, because it evolves and because it changes, that just doesn't work. If that worked, you wouldn't get sick from it 5 times. And Seth MacFarlane points it out.
It's not natural immunity. There's no immunity there. You've had COVID 5 times.
Probably because you had too many vaccines. I didn't.
Now this is crazy. Okay, this happens often with these folks. They make a point and you go, that makes no sense. Here's a very simple counterpoint. Oh, well, that's probably because of something else. The reason getting COVID doesn't protect you as much as it could is because you had too many vaccines. You won't find that anywhere in any kind of evidence-based trial. That's for sure.
Did the vaccine gave you COVID?
Well, that's certainly nothing unscientific about the fact that the vaccine, which does weaken you in order to strengthen you.
So as do all vaccines.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But while you're in a weakened state, yes. That's why so many people like me got it, did not have it while the thing was raging and I was taking zero precautions.
Now, this is an anecdote, but again, he's putting forward another claim that is not based in reality. In the period after you've been vaccinated, you are weakened and thus more likely to get COVID. I looked for evidence of that. Wasn't able to find any.
Because I was never that afraid of it.
But that's anecdotal. Like, I've had every booster there is to
anecdotal
have,
yeah.
And I have never had COVID. I get a flu shot once a year. I haven't had the flu in 20 years.
Right. Well, I haven't either, and I don't get a flu shot.
Okay, so this is all anecdotal,
right.
but you know the difference between anecdotal and statistical.
I do,
and statistically, you still have a 90% better chance of not being hospitalized, not dying if you're vaccinated.
Okay, but that's assuming all people are alike, and that is one of the giant fallacies in your way of thinking. We are not all alike. Yes, I would recommend and have recommended the COVID vaccine for the high-risk people.
By the way, it's funny the idea that Bill Maher is evaluating people and saying, I think you should get the vaccine. I don't really recommend it for you. Who is Bill Maher to be recommending vaccines to specific people based on their whatever status he assesses them to have?
Like, if you're 90 or fat, get it. Absolutely. You need it. Some people don't.
But you had...
Djokovic didn't need it.
But you had...
Aaron Rodgers didn't need it.
But you had something like 1,900 kids who died of COVID during the pandemic.
No, I don't think that's right.
Nah, just don't believe that statistic.
How many of them died from the vaccine? None.
The New York...
And the thinking there is that, well, probably most kids are not going to die from COVID, so why bother with the vaccine? Because it's only going to be a few hundred kids, right?
I don't know how many kids died. That seems very high to me. I know at one point the New York Times grossly, talking about misinformation, they had to apologize. They got it completely wrong.
This is called a red herring. In order to challenge Seth MacFarlane's number of 1,900 kids dying, he says one time the New York Times got something wrong. Okay, well, that was years ago and it's been corrected. How does that have any bearing on what Seth is saying? This is a classic distraction technique.
Reported something like 900,000 children have been hospitalized, and it was like 63,000. So maybe those facts should be checked.
Papers can get it wrong, and they print retractions, and you know this.
But also, with COVID or from COVID, did 1,900 children die with COVID? Yes, it's a whole different story.
Okay, but take 7 million people worldwide. 7 million people worldwide who died from COVID. Like, if even just a fraction of that is, and it's probably a larger fraction who died of COVID than who died with COVID. If even just a fraction of that is, that's still a lot of fucking people. That's a lot of fucking people.
Yes, but what? Okay,
That's
some people,
7 million people.
Things are, and you cannot prevent that.
You can, though. I mean, you can prevent.
At what cost?
But what's the cost of getting a vaccine? The
fact that
what's
you don't,
the
fact that you don't even have a clue what's the cost of getting a vaccine, that you don't know the answer to that. No, you completely want to shut your eyes to the fact that there are repercussions to all medical interventions, including a vaccine. All vaccines, they say side effects just like every medication does. Sure. You can see it in the literature. They can't write it on the back, on the vaccine, so you have to dig them. And of course there is a vaccine court because so many people have been injured. This is not a screed to say don't do vaccines. I'm not against doing vaccines. I'm against doing vaccines that I don't think I need. I should be able to decide that for myself inside my body. But yes, there are pathogens
don't you think that
would come along that I would fight you for.
But don't you think
to get the vaccine?
Okay, that's a good point.
To get the vaccine,
and you bring me to my next point. Don't you think that the vitriol and the aggression towards that the anti-vaccination movement, the way it souped itself up during all this, that the next time there is a pandemic, our public health system is so weakened.
Yes,
it's
exactly,
so weakened.
because of them and their misinformation that made people skeptical. The fact that everybody came out and said, if you get the vaccine, you cannot get the disease, and then of course that was wrong. And if you get the vaccine, you can't transmit it.
But
and
they were
that
learning right alongside us.
I understand.
They're not. You just said yourself, doctors are often wrong. They are, especially when they're researching a brand new disease.
And I am not blaming them for it. I'm just saying that's why there shouldn't be the science. There's no the in science. That's what you want. You want just to be the one.
This is bonkers stuff right here.
True opinion.
That's not true at all.
It is.
No, the strength of science. You don't know the strength of science is that it has the capacity to evolve.
But just acknowledge that vaccines have ill effects on some people.
They do. Of course they do.
Anecdotally.
But statistically, it's here and it's here. It's like it's people. How many? 7 million people died of COVID. How many people died from the vaccine? Probably a few.
But
I don't know what the number is, but I know it's not 7 million.
If we were more judicious about who needed it versus who it might hurt.
The thing that's missing from this goes on for a while. The thing that's of course missing from this is that there really is no more of this widespread mandate to get this vaccine. And I've been the first to say, once it became clear that this vaccine did not prevent transmission or getting the disease, but worked extraordinarily well at preventing you from getting really sick or dying, the argument for mandating it certainly was diminished. I was one of the first to say it. And I think one of the people that is finding the right balance on this issue is actually Sam Harris, who in an episode where he did a sort of review of everything on COVID, he pointed out that this was an emergency situation with millions dying. And when people were dying by the thousands daily in so many countries, including the United States, you use all the evidence and information you have to make the best decision possible. And when that first version of the vaccine did work well at preventing transmission and infection, a lot of those requirements made perfect sense. Over time, those requirements have been done away with. The effectiveness of the vaccine on transmission, on getting infected at all, has changed as the variants have gone forward. And that doesn't mean that because now we're doing something different, what was done in that unique 100-year pandemic explosion moment was wrong. And so I think where Maher misses the mark is that he goes too far in some areas, but is not nearly charitable enough in others. And he ends up making himself sound like an extremist. Now, this is not new for Bill Maher. I think on many things, Bill Maher makes sense. And on anything medical, for a long time, you go back and watch interviews that Bill Maher did with Larry King 25 years ago, he was already weird. Like, he had an anti-aspirin moment where he said, why would anyone take aspirin? The body isn't aspirin deficient, so why do you take aspirin? Well, that's not the way it works. The reason you take aspirin is not because the body is lacking aspirin. It's because you want to reduce a fever, for example, or whatever the case may be. So it's not new that Bill Maher is a little bit all over the place on medical stuff. Seth MacFarlane is really good at this, and I'm glad that he was on. I love my Helix sleep mattress. I've been sleeping on Helix mattresses for years now, which is why I asked them to be a sponsor. You actually take their famous sleep quiz, takes just a few minutes to answer questions about your sleep preferences, body type, sleep position, whether you have back pain, and Helix will match you with a mattress that's perfect for you, which is really unique and helpful because a lot of people don't know where to start when buying a mattress. I certainly didn't. Their newest collection of mattresses, called Helix Elite, come with a built-in Glaciotex layer to keep you cool at night, an extra layer of foam for pressure relief, and thousands of extra microcoils for best-in-class support and durability. All of their mattresses ship right to your door, totally free. They come with a 10 or 15-year warranty, and you get 100 nights to decide if you like it. My audience also gets a whopping 20% off all orders, plus 2 free pillows. Go to helixsleep.com/Pacman and enter code HelixPartner20 at checkout. The link is down below.